And so, I met her whole family, and then I met the daughter, and I looked at her and I said, I hear that you and I have a pretty similar experience with bullies. And this girl started crying and fell into my arms. And we talked for a while, and when I left with my manager, I looked at him and I was like, that is what I want to do for the rest of my life. He goes, then why don't we?
Welcome to Lolly La Luna TV. I'm Jasmine Kylene, and this is the Tea On, where we sip tea and we talk about things. Keep it simple, keep it nice. Now today I am so excited because we're gonna have a conversation that I think our generation really needs to hear, and not just our generation, honestly, but all of them really. But I think specifically our generation is one that will really benefit from this conversation. So I'm here with Miss Michaela Paige, who is just talented in every degree of the word. How are you today?
I'm amazing.
Yeah?
I am absolutely amazing.
I love to introduce my guests, but I was like, today I want you to introduce yourself because I feel like you are dipping your toe in every avenue.
Oh, thank you. Well, my name is Michaela Paige. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I am the founder of a self-empowerment campaign called Be You.
Yes, and we're going to talk about Be You because I think it just ties in so perfectly with what we're talking about today. But also, you were on The Voice, Top 12, so you've cultivated a beautiful platform with how incredible your career has been, and it's beautiful that you're using it to make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I felt like it was really important for me being on the show, and I talk about this a lot in my campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was 16 years old, and I went on television with a giant mohawk. And so I feel like at that point, I kind of took on this role where I was required, and it was my responsibility to be an advocate for people being themselves.
Right.
Because that was one of the first moments in my life and in my career where I actually stepped out on the stage and I was like, I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this for everybody else.
Right, absolutely. And I think by you living your most authentic self, you encourage people to do the same. So that's incredible. Now, I always love to start off my interviews with statistics. Yeah. Because I feel like putting numbers to things will really sort of bring in the severity of them. And this will also give you context as to what we'll be talking about today. But 87% of young people have either seen or experienced cyberbullying, which is an immensely high number. And the numbers have doubled since 2007 and increased exponentially since 2018 to 2019, which, like I said, is indicative of the fact that we are not moving in the right direction. Yeah. And so obviously that kind of makes you think why, and I think that probably social media and the digital age becoming more and more prominent does play a role in that.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, with those numbers, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's funny because I just did a whole series at a school in Ohio, and they asked me to do a presentation for the faculty and staff, really trying to figure out what the generation that's coming up and is in college right now needs. And so I started putting together this presentation, and a lot of what I started with was statistics. And 1 in 5 people suffers from a mental illness, and 39% of kids in college will experience one severe mental epidemic during their college career. The average age for panic attacks, the panic attack disorder to set in nowadays is 22. There's a lot of these things that we don't really think about. Absolutely. And so I think that there's a lot that social media plays into because we don't have the time to recharge. We don't have the time to reset. We don't take the time for ourselves, because when we say we're going to take the time for ourselves, you're going to sit and watch a movie, but you spend the first 45 minutes checking your phone and you forget that you're still connected to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. And I also think that the public, we kind of push this narrative of like, keep going, you're strong, get through it. And it's like, it's almost, I think we're willing to do the work on ourselves, but I think also to some degree it's like frowned upon to sort of stop.
Yeah, people forget that, the whole idea of doing your best. What is your best really? People think that doing your best is pushing yourself until you kill yourself, instead of realizing that doing your best includes getting adequate sleep, taking care of your body, taking time for yourself.
Absolutely.
And so we're also a generation that there's so much pressure on us societally that I think that we're pushing ourselves so far because we don't think that we're going to meet the expectations of the generation before us. So we're just consistently we're checking socials, we're always thinking that we can do better, and we live in this society that is so disposable. So there's always something that we're looking for that's better than the next thing. We're always thinking that there's something better instead of realizing that we need to cherish and be happy for what we have.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a big thing that plays a role in that is comparing yourself to where other people are on social media, which obviously, like you mentioned earlier, and I did as well, is that it's a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Right? And we're living very real lives, and we're comparing them to sort of like these poster boards of people.
Oh my God. We're comparing our brokenness and our struggles and our mental health and our lows and those moments where we're depressed and we're scrolling through social media. The perfect example is like on holidays when sometimes people have small families, and like a lot of the time it's been my father and I, or me and my father and my mother for the holidays, and like you scroll through and it's very easy to get to fall in that place of like everybody's got these big families. But more and more now, thank God, I've seen, other influencers that have posted like, hey, I know that it looks like everybody's got these big, beautiful families. Like, don't be discouraged if you're celebrating the holidays alone. Don't be discouraged if you don't have your family around you. And it's great that there's people focusing on it, but I think it's such a swell of nonsense that's out on the internet. It gets so easily lost because it's overshadowed by everything else.
100%. And it's just so easy to, I don't know, let your weaknesses be affected by that.
100%.
Do you feel like with social media, because everything is a double-edged sword, there's always two sides to a coin, do you feel like it's helped you feel more seen when more people, more influencers have been open to being more vulnerable and really speaking on those sides, or have you felt more of the negative effects?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that there's, like you said, there's two sides to every coin. There's a positive and a negative. There's good things about everything and there's bad things about everything. And for me, I appreciate being able to be transparent and being able to share my transparency with other people.
Right.
A lot of my posts are geared towards being transparent. Last week was National Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and I made this big, long post about, my struggles with my body image. Right. And I was so happy to see it received and see the messages come in of other people. And a lot of times when I've posted stuff like that, I'll get people that, reach out to me and they share their stories with me. At the same time, you see all of these just garbage posts that are just nonsense that have no purpose, and a lot of times, I'm human, I'll scroll through and I'll be like, oh well, if I posted this then maybe I'd have more following, or maybe I'd be more popular. But then I think I'm a big advocate for living in purpose. And the difference between living and existing is purpose. So really being aware of what my intention is with every post that I make. What am I trying to say? What am I reaching out to? Is this just to make myself feel good, or just for the likes?
Recognize when it derives from ego, because a lot of times you don't even realize it.
Absolutely. And I think that there's something about being mindful and being aware of yourself and being aware of where your mind sits that we don't do now, because we're gearing our entire image around what everybody else wants us to be, because there's such a push for that on social media. So I think, honestly, I'm not necessarily a fan of it. If it wasn't for my career choice, if it wasn't for my career path, I would absolutely be
Same. Yeah. I say that all the time. If I could, and then I step back and I'm like, well, can I?
Yeah.
But it's just like having a digital career, you kind of
exactly. You have to be on everything,
and it takes. It's a commitment to make sure that you're balancing it.
It's like now this whole TikTok thing, right? So like I'll make a bunch of posts so that I don't have to make them every day, because I feel like social media kind of absorbs your life. So like my Instagram is full of like, I'll have these vulnerable moments and I will save these posts for when I feel like I want to post them again. But same with TikTok, I'm like, oh my God, I'm supposed to do this all the time, and they're like these little dance things, and I don't do that. So I'm like trying to figure out what to post, and like I've had severe anxiety over TikTok, and my manager's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, this is horrible.
It's so
what am I supposed to do? Oh my God. So I try to post all these motivational things. I'm like, you know what? That's going to work. And that's my audience will like this. So I'm going to live with it.
Yeah.
And there's so much, people forget that there's so much pressure as like a artist or any sort of career that you want to have that has to have some sort of advertisement that's self-induced.
Right.
That there's a huge amount of pressure to like post the right things.
Right.
And I feel like that's very often forgotten. So there's so much stress and anxiety in our generation that comes from social media just itself.
Just a whole new like batch that never existed before.
Exactly.
The online age is something that's so unique and it's so prominent in all of our lives and it's in our palms and it's the world. You know what I'm saying? So of course, so many things are gonna be more from that. That's so insane. And like you said, I wish that I could disconnect, but I just try to balance it.
Exactly. It's like one of the things that I love to do is just take my time away from it and leave my phone. Leave my phone in the other room and stay away from it and try and limit the amount of time that I spend on it. And, a lot of the people in my life understand that, 8:55 hits and usually at 9 o'clock I'll make my post. So like I have everything already set. I've got my list of hashtags, I've got my posts already so that I don't have to spend a whole bunch of time. But I think when you manage social media right and you don't let it consume your life, then it's something that can be advantageous because you can learn so much about it.
100%, yeah. If you use it for what it was meant to be used for, basically.
Exactly.
But that does tie into something that I did want to ask because, like you said, you kind of know how to navigate it. What is like a self-care ritual for you? And not just physically, not just a bath bomb, but sort of just like emotionally, what do you do?
I am a big believer in the theory of dating yourself. So when you want to get to know, the whole BU campaign was centered a lot around this whole idea of self-love and self-care. And I said, what do you do when you're trying to date somebody? You go out, you get to know them, you spend time with them, you go do things with them. I said, why do we treat our relationships with ourselves any different? Because a lot of the time I go out and will do stuff by myself and people will be like, you went by yourself. I could never do that. I could never go to the movies by myself or go to a concert by myself or go to lunch by myself. People are going to judge me. I love that. And I think that you have to at least take one small moment for yourself every day. But you need to spend time. If there's things that you want to do, don't wait for somebody else to want to do them with you. Go do them by yourself. I'm big into like Disney and Universal. So a lot of times I'll take day trips and I'll go up there by myself. I'll run around the parks and then I'll come home and I'll feel so much better.
Oh, that's incredible.
But I think we need to take more time getting to know who we are because I think that people don't really understand who they are, so they don't understand what they want, and then we get ourselves into these situations. I'm speaking from existence and experience. I was one that like I didn't know what I wanted, so I kept going in the path of what everybody else wanted me to do, and then I learned how horrible I felt and how much I didn't really understand who the person looking back in the mirror at me was. And I decided that at that point when I looked in that mirror and I realized that the person that was staring back at me was a stranger, I realized that I had a responsibility to change that. And it was all solely on myself. And so I started to. And I think that we really have to take the time to look in the mirror and really ask ourselves if we know who that person is. Before we ask ourselves if we're happy, before we ask ourselves if we're comfortable, we have to ask ourselves.
Know ourselves.
Yeah. Do we recognize that person?
100%. So much healing happens when you actually understand your own wounds and understand the root causes of them. And it's almost as if I'm like addicted to healing. Like I love breaking myself down so that I can build back up and sort of understand myself. I mean, I've been dating myself for 24 years, darling. So I would definitely encourage everyone to sort of get comfortable with, themselves in the mirror, like you said, and be willing to do the work. Something I want to also bring up is, because obviously your BU campaign, you work a lot with students and a lot with kids. What is something that you wish you could tell your 12-year-old self now that you've sort of done life?
Be gentle with yourself. I think I spent a lot of time, when I was 12 and 12 through like 14 was like my pivotal age because I remember going through school being bullied. I was bullied so bad in school. I got ulcers. I went to the hospital. I ended up when I was 19 developing a chronic illness from just the trauma and the brokenness that I carried around for so many years. And I wish that I wasn't so hard on myself. I wanted to be invisible. I show a lot of pictures of myself when I was young in these seminars. And I had long hair, I was heavy, but I wore these sweatshirts and I tried to make everybody like me, and I put myself at a detriment trying to make everybody like me.
You were shielding yourself.
I didn't want to be known. And I had a moment where I looked in the mirror and I changed my whole perspective in my whole life. I wanted to get myself in shape. I wanted to be happy with who I was. And I think we're so hard on ourselves when we don't need to be, and people don't take things as seriously or don't hold you accountable for things as much as you think that they do. And allowing yourself to be human, allowing yourself to be broken. I think that's something that I continue to learn over and over again. Just allowing yourself to really give in to those moments where you're broken, and give in to those moments where you're feeling something, and really let yourself go through it. Because I never did. I never did. And this generation does not give itself permission to feel.
Absolutely.
So we want to bottle everything up. We want to push everything down. And then if you're like me, it ends up detrimental and you end up with a lifelong illness from it. Or you can end up, people end up taking their lives out.
Right.
It's 280 people every day do not commit suicide that wanted to. Which, if you do the math, it's,
insane.
Yeah.
I 100% agree, and I think that we just don't. I think you can't heal unless you actually process what it is that you're feeling. I think we tend to mask or push through, and it's understand it. But as at 12 is that's an age. and I also experienced bullying, and that was the height of my bullying was I think at 12, and I think if I could talk to my younger self, I would just tell her to stop people pleasing. I think I based so much of my own validation on how others viewed me. And now, decades later, I'm did it matter at all? What those people that I have nothing to do with anymore? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Well, it's crazy because I think about the same thing, and I went through the same thing where everything was. People like to say high school's the worst. I'm like, middle school was the worst.
School was the worst.
And everybody feels the same way. Oh, I went to high school for 1 year, and then I went online, so I belong in high school too.
I agree.
But there have been
middle school though. That was battle.
Oh my God, there have been times where I've been at 280 for everyone, 280 people for every one person who commits suicide. So when you do the math, I think it's 36,000 people a day are talked down. But you also think about one of the other statistics is 67% of people who commit suicide or want to commit suicide tell one of their friends first or tell somebody that they love first. And you think about how overwhelming the world can be, that we've got this epidemic of suicide. We've got this raise in eating disorders on college campuses. We've got depression and anxiety, and are at the top of the list for the things that people suffer from.
Absolutely.
And we're inviting them in like they're a family member. We're asking them to sit down at our table instead of really understanding that that's something we have to work through and work to be better.
Right.
So it's scary because you've got kids now. I was in the hospital for ulcers when I was 12.
Right.
And I was talking to the doctor. My parents were like, oh, but she's so young. And the doctor looked at me and he goes, she's not that young. My average age here, which was 12 years ago, because the average age that's coming in now with an ulcer, with their first ulcer, is in 3rd grade.
Oh my God.
So if that doesn't make you understand, I mean, I know kids who are 6 and 7 years old that are so overworked from school that they have to go to therapy.
Right,
I mean, it's happening more and more. Right. And so it's our jobs to really combat that.
Right, yeah. And I mean, for me, especially my whole thing is just, I think talking about it is the first step in everything. I think just raising awareness and just not making it so taboo so that people can see themselves and understand and connect, you know what I mean? But I did want to bring up, because with the BU campaign, you're face to face and you're tangibly there with a lot of these kids. Yeah. What's like the most heartbreaking thing that you had a kid tell you?
Everything. Honestly, I never imagined when I started doing this, and I started the campaign, we started it in 2016, we started implementing it really in 2017, so we took a year to kind of grow it. It started because a girl came up to me after her mom had talked to me, and her mom was like, oh my God, how did you ever become comfortable with yourself? And I told this mom, I was like, I never, that's a lifelong journey that I will continue to do for the rest of my life. I was severely bullied and all of these things. I started telling her my story, and this mom starts crying. And I was like, what's wrong? She goes, my daughter is bullied so bad in school. I'm like, where is she? Yeah. And so, I met her whole family, and then I met the daughter, and I looked at her and I said, I hear that you and I have a pretty similar experience with bullies. And this girl started crying and fell into my arms. And we talked for a while, and when I left with my manager, I looked at him and I was like, that is what I want to do for the rest of my life. He goes, and why don't we? And we started the campaign.
Beautiful.
And it's grown to, like, I've got kids who've told me about physical abuse. I've had kids come up to me that don't know me after hearing my story, and this is what is so amazing. Kids that have come up to me and said, you know, I tried to commit suicide, or, you know, I was raped, or I was abused, or these things that they're trusting me with. And it's such a, it can be so heavy and it can be so scary sometimes, but it's so beautiful that they find comfort in me in that way. And we cry. I cry so much with these kids because we do like meet and greets afterwards.
Yeah.
I cry and they, you know, they're in my arms, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful, but it shows me just where we're at. And for some of these kids, it's, this is the first time I've ever talked about it. And I think it's because I genuinely care about each and every kid that I meet, each and every adult. I've had adults tell me about how their children have committed suicide, or their children, they've had problems with their children, and it breaks my heart, but I get to watch them heal a little bit each time.
And I get to be a part of it.
Yeah.
You're so in your purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the most beautiful thing I think a person can be. I think when we all step into our purpose is when we can, I don't know, cultivate at least just a healthier world.
Yeah.
And I don't know, bring awareness to this kind of stuff, because will it ever really go away? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think if we cultivate a healthy soil where people can actually talk about it and actually know that you can do the work and that you can, you know, get out of that, and there is some sort of light in the tunnel.
And it's scary as hell. I mean, I'll be the first one to say, like, it's terrifying for me to stand up in front of a crowd and be like, here's all of the stuff I've ever suffered with in my life.
Right.
And it's normal, but, you know, I've become really comfortable where people are like, wow, you're really casual about talking about these things. And I'm like, if I'm not, then it's going to be a taboo subject forever. It's going to be something we don't touch forever. And I have become so comfortable with it because I'm like, look, it's just a part of my journey. It's not my identity. It's not your identity, what you've gone through. It's a part of your journey. It's part of what's made you who you are.
100%.
And a lot of times we carry these bags that are so heavy, and we drag them along, not realizing that we can just let things go along the way. And we feel like we're broken. I mean, I had a campus that told me, like, our biggest problem is domestic violence. Our biggest problem is abusive relationships. And I'm like, because we're accepting all of this love, it's not really love. If you're loving yourself at 40% and somebody comes along and they're loving you at 50%, it's more, but it's still a failing grade.
Right, exactly.
And so we think that we're broken, and we think that I remember not being enough and feeling like I wasn't enough. And I remember getting out of an abusive relationship, and I got I am enough tattooed on my rib cage as a reminder for myself, because I think that that's the one thing that we forget more than anything else, because we're trying to be everything for everyone instead of realizing that we only have to be us for ourselves.
100%, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And I think also, just to like tie that up, is that you're always going to be a work in progress. This isn't something that happens overnight. It's not something that you figure out and you're done. Because I've fooled myself into thinking,
oh God, yeah,
like, I'm good, I figured it out, I'm confident, I'll never not be confident. It's a roller coaster, but I think when you're willing to sort of strap on and know that, it makes it so much easier.
Absolutely.
But, what is next for you? What's next for BU? What's next
Oh
for
my God, I'm actually leaving in a few days. I have another leg of my tour, so I'll be in New York, I'll be in Pennsylvania, I'll be in Jacksonville, I'll be in Orlando, I'll be in Texas, which is really exciting for me. I love being able to do conventions and going to schools and traveling, and then I've got music that we're working on now, so I'll be releasing an EP soon. There's a video out now on my page that's actually one of the schools, Columbia College in Burbank, California, actually took my story, and one of my songs that I wrote, which was the inspiration. I wrote it for the girl who was the inspiration behind the campaign, and then I wrote it for myself as well, because I saw so much correlation between the two of us. It's a song called Fly, and they actually took my story, and the whole campus, the film department, actually created a music video for it.
Oh, that's so
I air it during all of my shows. But you can check that out, and that song's actually going to be part of my EP. So I'm very excited to release new music. I'll be, you know,
we're excited to hear it. Kidding?
It's great to be able to continue to, when you live in your purpose and you find the true meaning to living instead of just existing. I think that the doors really open up when you open yourself up to letting things happen the way that they did. I mean,
100%.
I made a video yesterday and I posted it on social media, and I was like, I've been doing this for 16 years. I had so many people tell me, you know, you should get a real job. You should find, you know, something that will be sustainable, and you know, you should probably think of doing something else. And listening to myself and understanding that this is what I'm supposed to be. I never thought that I'd be doing a campaign like this, but, you know, really just being honest with yourself about what you want and then going after it is what matters.
Absolutely. Choosing it and then going after it. Beautiful. Where can people find you?
You can find me on michaelapaige.com. You can find me everywhere on socials at Miss Michaela Paige, which is MS Michaela Paige.
Beautiful. Thank you for helping change the narrative. You are, like I said, so within your purpose. It's like exuding from your skin. So thank you. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.